This is Women's Leadership Success.com radio, episode number 99. Today we're going to do something totally different and very special. We're going to do a 3-part series called Communicate Like a Leader for Greater Influence, Impact, and Income. And I'm going to be the guest. Now, the reason why we're talking about this subject is that in developing your leadership skills, whether you're just starting out or you've been in upper management, it's really, really important to keep honing those skills because it impacts getting promoted. It impacts how you relate with other people, how you handle conflicts. Everything depends on your ability to communicate well. So we'll be talking about that in this series.
Welcome to Women's Leadership Podcast, showing you how to influence people, improve your performance, and advance your career. Brought to you by women's leadership and career expert Sabrina Braham and womensleadershipsuccess.com. Here's your chance to meet women trendsetters leading the way to success, accomplishment, and balance in business and life. No matter if you're a manager, CEO, or entrepreneur, join Sabrina for coaching and no-nonsense advice to improve your career and bottom line.
So today I'd like to introduce my husband, Tim Warren. He's the executive producer of my show and a huge women's leadership advocate. And he's going to be interviewing me for this series because it fits in with the format of the show and it's fun to dialogue. And he's really familiar with the show and the topics since its inception 10 years ago. Welcome, Tim.
Thank you, Sabrina. It's fun to be working with you actually on the show again. And we did this some time ago, and it was fun. And I believe it was a pretty popular show. So I'm looking forward to it. And I know this is a super important topic that you are super passionate about, and it's so critical to helping women be greater leaders. You know, and since just like if you being the normal format of the show, you would always talk about your guests and their credentials. So I'm going to do the same for you, so that people they really understand the scope of your experience in leadership and communication. So for over 8 years, you have been work with current and future women business leaders and teams who do seek to increase their influence, impact, and income. You are an entrepreneur, author, certified professional executive coach. And what you decided was after many years of being a psychotherapist and executive coach, you've shifted your focus to career and leadership development that empowers women, and Women's Leadership Success radio podcast is part of that. You're a graduate of Leadership Santa Rosa, which is where we met many years ago. You are the founder of the award-winning radio podcast, Women's Leadership Success, which you all are listening to. And you're the founder of the Women's Leadership Success Academy, offering Accelerate Your Leadership Superpowers. And you're just a great human being.
Why, thank you. I appreciate that.
My pleasure. So we're gonna jump right into this topic, and as Sabrina mentioned earlier, I'm going to be interviewing her, and so she can share some of her wisdom with you all today. So, as Sabrina mentioned earlier, this is a series, and because it's such an important topic, we decided that we're going to break it into 3 core topics. So, Sabrina, what are those 3 core topics, and the new bonus that we've come up with that people can look forward to in episode number 99, 100, and 101?
Well, the first episode we're going to talk about relationship and skills that help you to influence people. And then in episode 100, we'll talk about feeling felt and how to deepen relationships. And in episode 101, we're going to talk about finding your voice, learning to speak up. And new at the end of each show, we're going to talk about Sabrina's leadership power tips. And they're basically powerful, quick tips that you can put to use immediately, which will help you to have more influence, impact, and income.
Outstanding. Well, it's exciting, and it was fun helping you put together the outline and chunk this down into pieces. for people to really get a lot out of it and learn from it. So the first of this series is really about the relationships in using those skills to influence the game and help people truly develop more influence, impact, and income. And so why don't we start off by, if you, I know that you've got a great story about one of your clients, and unfortunately who missed huge leadership and career development and income opportunities, and how she overcame it.
So a few years ago, about 4 years ago actually, I was doing executive coaching and consulting with one of the Fortune 500 companies that I work with. And they asked me to work with one of their Far Exceeds performers. And it was a little bit puzzling and mysterious what they were wanting me to do with her. But it turned out that she had applied for 3 jobs in the last 5 years that would have been promotions for her, and she'd been turned down every time. She didn't know why. Her boss didn't know why. She was pretty discouraged about this, but there was another job coming up in about 3 weeks, and she wanted to see if she could get that job. So we began working on her interview skills, which she wasn't very good at. And we honed those down until she really had it nailed. She had good interview skills. She thought she did. Her boss thought she did. I thought she did. She went for that interview. And during the interview, she just felt like she knocked it out of the ballpark. And it was the kind of feedback she got later. She heard that everybody on the panel really liked her. And so she waited a couple weeks, and then the results came back. And guess what?
What?
She did not get the job.
What?
She was not only devastated by not getting the job, but the man that got the job, she said, was half as qualified as she was, which really, really made her feel so horrible. She felt like maybe she shouldn't even try to get promoted again. It was every time she tried it, it just didn't seem to work. But I talked her into, let's see what we can do here, and tell me something about what you do in your job and how that goes. And so what she told me was really interesting. And first what she said was she just kept her nose to the grindstone. I mean, the reason she got such high performance reviews was she didn't take breaks. She didn't take a lunch. She kept her nose to the grindstone. She got her work done. Mistake number 1. Then she said, I asked her, how do you let people know what you've been doing, the upper management? She says, well, I don't ever do anything to let them know what I'm doing because I feel like they should know that. I mean, after all, I'm getting these high marks, so why should I have to tell them anything? Mistake number 2. You do have to do that. Then I asked her, how are you at networking? And what she said was, I don't believe in schmoozing. I don't like brown nosing. I think it's a waste of time. Mistake number 3. We're going to talk more about networking in a few minutes and the difference between networking and power networking. But it's something that one does have to do if they're going to get promoted. Then the fourth thing that she said was that she never spoke up in meetings. A couple years before, felt like she put her foot in her mouth, and she didn't want to do that again. So she was just totally silent in meetings. Mistake number 4. If you don't speak up, if you're not being heard, you are not going to make an impression on other people. And that's something we will be talking about more in episode 101. So we worked on her, all these skills. I talked her into, let's see what you can do to improve. She worked for a few months. And then 2 positions for promotion came open. She practiced the interviews. She went for the interviews, got great results. She felt good about it. She heard good things. And guess what happened?
What?
She didn't get one job offer. She got 2 job offers.
Nice.
Those 2 departments were so impressed by her, they both wanted her. Now, she was making $80,000 a year. The job was paying $100,000, but when the 2 departments found they were vying for Susan, they raised that income to $120,000. One offered her a company car, another offered her some plum positions on committees, and she was just elated to have years of not getting picked to all of a sudden being vied for to work for them. She was so excited. She finally picked one position, and she worked there for about 3 years, and then something happened that starts happening when you're really, really good at relationships, at speaking up, at letting people knowing how you're doing. And that is, she got invited to apply for a higher management position. Now, this is what happens. If you're really good at what you're doing, instead of having to apply, you get invited. What happens is all the people you work for start saying, hey, Susan would be great for this job. The other departments are going, Susan should get this next position up. And the upper management is saying the same thing. So Susan got that job, and she now went from the $120,000 a year to in upper management with her stock options and benefits. She was making over $240,000. So, huge jump.
Wow.
And what was really exciting about that was that when I go into the company and I'm asking, who's your role model? Without exception, people say Susan. And they say, Susan, she has my back. She's always available if I want to ask her a question. She is just such a good leader, and I want to be like Susan. So what was exciting about what happened with Susan is she not only increased her influence, her impact, and her income, but she's leaving a legacy. She has a lot of women and men that really look up to her leadership styles and are following it and want to follow in her footsteps.
Wow. That is an incredible story. And to essentially triple your income in a few years. And it had to make her feel phenomenal. I can imagine how being turned down year after year would be devastating. And then to essentially realize that just by adding these additional skill sets and working with you on that, that she was able to learn that and apply it. And wow, what a difference it made for her. So for the people who are listening out there in the audience, what were some of the main things that Susan had to change? And how does it relate to the women listening to this program? How can they apply what Susan learned from you to their leadership?
Okay. We'll be covering speaking up in meetings and deepening relationships a lot more, but we're gonna really start with the beginning part of deepening relationships and helping people feel felt, build trust, and communicate better. So that's where we'll start today.
Okay. So what would be a good way to start deepening relationships?
So it's really getting people to feel like you get who they are. And the brain is really interesting. We have a thing called mirror neurons, and the mirror neurons are a part of the brain that is always looking for how are we like somebody else. And so when we connect that way, those little neurons light up and we feel more connected to the other person. These also light up when we're in a group. If everybody's crying, if everybody's laughing, if we're all feeling connected to each other, then those little mirror neurons light up. And so when we do that, it really, really begins to make the person feel felt, and it increases rapport.
So how does I'm a little confused on how so the mirror neurons are the result of connecting and really understanding and listening to the people that you're talking to. Is that correct?
Right.
So
yeah, I think I didn't really say that. It's really our listening and communicating with people in such a way that they feel understood and feel like someone has listened to them. And the research says that most people have a mirror neuron deficit. And that is that most people don't really feel like anyone listens to them. When I used to be a psychotherapist, it seemed like a lot of people were coming in to have therapy that basically just wanted someone to listen to them. So really listening to somebody else, really understanding what it is they're communicating is a super important thing. And
okay. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was going to say, so I thank you for explaining that. So I better understand now that it's really deeper listening skills that really help trigger the mirror neurons and help create a better sense of trust and communication. So how would someone develop deeper listening skills?
Yeah, and it's interesting. Well, I've done 2 workshops this last week where we were practicing this skill in pairs, and the exercise was the one person answers a question and the other person listens but doesn't say anything. And almost everybody in the group said that was really different for them, that usually they're thinking about what they're going to say next, or how I'm going to respond to that. And to listen without coming up with a response is a very, very powerful thing to do. And it's a different kind of listening. We many times think of listening as a tennis game. The ball goes back and forth. Who's talking? And really, deep listening is a detective story. It's really finding out what the other person is trying to get across to you. Really, really listening. And several of the women, when we did this exercise, said, wow, it was so powerful. And what I realized was I was listening with the intention of understanding them. And I don't know if I usually do that when I'm listening to somebody else. So listening with intention is a really, really important thing to do. Listening without interrupting, being really present, and then if it feels like you need it, asking powerful questions or clarifying questions so that you can get more information. And those clarifying questions are things like, tell me more. Could you help me understand how that impacted your doing whatever you were doing? So it's asking questions that clarify that. A lot of times what we tend to do is we want to share how we're like that person. Oh, you won a race? Well, I won a race too. Or, oh, your daughter had a 5-year-old birthday party? Well, so did mine. When you're doing listening with this intention, deepening the intention and the listening, it's just focused on the other person. It is so powerful, and especially because most people don't have anyone doing this with them.
Well, it's actually pretty funny. Sabrina and I were working on doing the setup on the show and trying to get our outline together and kind of prepare for this. And it was pretty funny that here we are working on communication and listening. And I would be lying if I didn't say we didn't have a couple challenges ourselves, trying to pull it together, organize it, listen, ask questions, and get clarification. So this was a great exercise for us today, wasn't it, Sabrina?
It absolutely is. And I don't care who you are, you can improve your leadership. Not only your leadership, but you can improve the way you communicate. And it's amazing. We were working in two different rooms that we kept misunderstanding what the next thing was we were going to do. And luckily, we have a really good relationship, so we were laughing about it, which is also one of the secrets, not to take it too seriously. But these are really important, and I would like to suggest people even listen to this more than once, because you may have missed something in what we're talking about here.
So when we were planning this series, you've got so many great tips that you've shared, and you've been doing some live training recently, and we came up with the idea that we wanted to leave you all with something that from Sabrina that you could not only kind of reflect on the topic today of deep listening and as part of your leadership development skills. But Sabrina, we're introducing something called Sabrina's Leadership Power Tips. And it's our intention from now on that every show at the end will have a leadership power tip from Sabrina. And it's really and something that you can use immediately to help you communicate like a leader. So today, what is your Sabrina's leadership power tip?
I'm going to give you 3 today. The first one I'm going to give you is if you're shy and it's hard for you to have conversations with people, powerful listening, deepening your listening skills is a really, really good way to get over your shyness. It's a really powerful way to keep your focus on making the other person feel listened to, so you don't have to focus on yourself. It's really about them. And as you're doing this and you're listening to them, pay attention to their body language. Notice how their body is. See if there's some similar way you can move your body, not in a big overt way, but that you could match or mirror a little bit of their body. And try that out and see how that works. And I would love for you to make comments down the bottom of the show and let me know how that worked for you and what you got out of it and other questions you might have about communication. So thank you, Tim, for interviewing me today. And I look forward to the upcoming topics in Communicate Like a Leader series. Episode 100, Feeling Felt, and episode 101, Finding Your Voice, Speaking Up. And this is going to happen over the next 5 or 6 weeks.
Cool. I know that you've been doing some training locally, some live training. And do you want to just quickly share what you've been training on and where people might, if they're actually in the Bay Area, where they might find those dates?
So I'm doing trainings on Communicate Like a Leader for greater impact, influence, and income in the Bay Area. So if you're interested in that, if you go to Women's Leadership Success, there'll be a posting of where I'll be, and I'd love to meet you in person and have you be part of that. Take care for now, and thank you so much for listening. And thanks, Tim. Would you like to be an exceptional leader? Then please join me on the next 2 shows in this special series, Communicate Like a Leader. In this series, you will hear thought-provoking stories and get insider secrets to help you increase your influence, impact, and income. And if you would quickly like to find out where you are in your leadership development, here's how you can. I have designed a special 4-minute career development quiz, and as one of my listeners, you can get it for free. Just go to careerdevelopmentquiz.com. Once you complete the confidential quiz, you'll get your score and some suggestions immediately. Plus, you may even qualify for a free coaching session. And lastly, can you do me a small favor? My goal this year is to get 500,000 downloads on women's leadership success. We have had almost 335,000 downloads at this time. When we have more listeners, we can help more women to be better leaders worldwide. Empowered women do change the world. Here's how you can be part of this women's leadership global movement. By sharing this show or a particular episode you have enjoyed in social media, subscribing and giving me a review in iTunes, Stitcher, or Google Play. Thanks for your help, and bye for now.
Thank you for joining your host, Sabrina Braham, on another Women's Leadership Podcast. If you have questions or comments, you can email her at sabrina@sabrinabraham.com. Since 1989, Sabrina and her team have helped hundreds of women managers, business leaders, and entrepreneurs with valuable trainings, articles, books, and executive coaching. For additional tips, interviews, and free access to Great Leaders Today mini course, visit www.womensleadershipsuccess.com.